impactful, it is life-changing, and we really do appreciate it. Julie Booksh is a licensed counselor. You've met her just literally minutes ago with Roop, and I know Julie will get a chance to have some impact in discussion with regards to mental health and anxiety, depression, and of course, Eric Hipple, former Detroit Lion, very well known to us, very well known in our community about the significance of depression and how suicide has played a significant impact in your life. And so I'm going to leave it to the two of you in a sense, because I'm going to have Roop help us out, ask some questions. And if any of you have any questions that you think are really something you want to just bring up for the moment, feel free to just give us that look, give us that glare, or raise your hand, whatever it is, and we're going to be here. I'm going to get another microphone, so we'll have it. The magic will come from behind us. Here's one for you guys. Getting another microphone right now. Let's open things up to questions. Anybody have any questions for somebody about mental health? May I ask you a question? That's okay. How many people still believe there's a stigma when it comes to admitting somebody has a mental health issue? Every time we talk about everything, our heart, we're walking around today, we're talking about our livers, we're talking about our muscles, we're talking about our eyes. For some reason, maybe that has to do with let's give it to the panelists to ask the question. And Eric, we haven't heard from Eric Hipple. I know you had a very serious story about why suicide and preventing suicide is important to you. Talk about that.
Well, I lost my son, my 15-year-old son, to suicide, and yet, even before that happened, I'd gone through my own events. Part of it, due to transition, I will call it, away from football into the real world. But I never sought help, and I never sought treatment. I never asked questions, and so when my son started suffering some of the similar depressive symptoms to that, I didn't ask the right questions. He didn't have the information, and unfortunately, as his symptoms got worse and worse, he ended up taking his life. And at 15 years old, and yet he had everything going for him, great friends, and yet when the symptoms started hitting, he started pulling separation away, started isolating. He was captain of his freshman basketball team, and his grades got to the point then he couldn't participate, and so all these things just kind of closed in on him, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the help. That's how I got involved in suicide prevention. The last 7 years, I've been working with the U.S. Fleet Forces, the Navy, doing suicide prevention. In our own population, we do suicide prevention. We do a school program, 20 schools a year in high schools for suicide prevention. And it means a lot to me because reaching out, but there's so many things that go into that we really have to look at those in a bigger issue. As Julie and Rube were talking earlier, there's anxieties, there's depression, there's transitional events, there's things that happen to people that can get us in that space, and that's what we have to really address and get help early.
Virgil, thank you so much for sharing your story of your family and your son. We remember him today and hope to prevent anything like that from happening with other people. And I know that's why you're an advocate and you're speaking out. Go ahead, Norris, you have some...
Yeah, for me, and that's a very important point that Eric has brought out. And I think, Roop, you touched on it earlier. I think the biggest key for men's health is coming to the table, saying, I need help. For us men, we don't really like to say that we need help. And a lot of it goes back to how we were raised. I mean, I'm from the South originally, and as a kid, if I broke a toy, I was told to fix it. Don't cry. So as I became older in my mind, it was like, okay, I can't cry. I played football. I was on my way to University of Tennessee before I got married. But those kind of things stick with you as you go older. So for me, and it's getting the word out that it's okay, guys, to say, I need help. I can't do all of this. It's for our caregivers to say, okay, let's go encourage your loved one to go seek help. So I think engagement, getting them into the door is the first hurdle. Now, once you get us in the door, we professionals can take it from there.
And that's what we depend on, are those professionals. I want to open that up for everybody, but I'll tell you personally, when I first went to go see a therapist about my anxiety, I mean, I used to tell my wife, and she's a therapist, and I would say, I have the hardest time getting out of there because when I walk out the door, it's a shared office space, and I was afraid someone would see me leaving the therapist's office, and then what would they think of me? And this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it was an awful feeling to feel ashamed to want to get help, and I would never do that walking out of my dentist's office. I wouldn't go running to my car or ducking for cover. If the dentist, if someone saw that I have dental issues, no issue, no problem. Do you guys agree that it seems to be like that? I mean, it seems to be an issue. And what are you guys noticing with that? And how can we stop that? How do we change that?
Well, there's a lot of implications in that. One is, you're high profile, and so being seen on TV, you don't want people to, what are they going to think? Okay, as a in a profession of trying to be on top and being the leadership, and and it's a I'll call it one of the manly things, just like first responders are, just like police work is, just like military is the fact that you can't show that weakness. You don't want to be perceived as that. But if you look at it in a different way, and I think this is how we defeat that, if you look at it in a different way and say, let's talk about mental fitness. Because we talk about physical fitness, about staying in shape, because that's how we perform better. Let's talk about mental fitness. So let's do the things we need to do to be in good mental shape. And that's part of the things we do, which is maintenance, which is talk to somebody when we need to, which is be proactive rather than waiting till the wheels come off and now you're down here where all of a sudden you're faced with the stigma. Let's do it on an approach of being proactive about it.
And one of the things that that you can do is how we're approaching mental health as Central City as integrated health. Usually we're looking at your mental health and your physical health and you're separating it. Why not get your mental exam when you get your physical exam? One place, so you don't have to feel like I got to sneak out of the therapist's office, but the therapist's office is in the same office as your health provider. So you know how you go down the hall to get your blood drawn? You just go down the hall to get your mental health services. And the stigma a lot of times is related to the fact of how we've packaged mental health. We've packaged it as if something was broken, and it's not. If you treat it like any other physical illness, there's a chemical imbalance, and that you have to bring that back within balance, which is why we use the medications. But also with the medications come side effects like with every other medication. And a side effect of a lot of medications is the fact that a person gets opened up to a lot of things that they've learned to repress over the years, which is why you need counseling and therapy to help you deal with those new feelings.
Well, Julie, I wanted to ask you, because you always preach about integrative health, and I say the word preach. She doesn't shove it down my throat. She just talks about it often. It's her passion. Maybe sometimes, but not generally speaking. But the big thing that you always say is, what you eat affects you. You talk about spiritual nutrition. You always say what you take in through the day mentally, you express yourself, right? Talk about that.
Yes. So my definition of nutrition, of course, includes what we eat and drink, but it is also the totality of what we take in through all of our senses. So that's the traffic jam. That's the day's news. And if any of you saw the news this week, it was a horrific news week in the country and in our city, in the city of Dearborn especially. This is all part of our nutrition. It's the moods of our coworkers, the moods of our family members. It's whether we're looking at sunsets or we're watching television for 24 hours a day. It's the good nutrition, so to speak, as well as the nutrition that we can't really escape. And this stuff builds up in us, and it's important to have a release for that. And that's why, when I hear people talking about crying, and in our culture we've made, if somebody's crying, that means something is wrong. Well, maybe it means they're a little bit overwhelmed, but if someone is crying for me, something is very right with that. It's an emotional release. And it's a release of storing all of that stuff, all of that nutrition that we've accumulated throughout the course of a day, a week, a decade, 4 decades, a lifetime, for some people that are carrying around even old grief that they don't even realize they're still carrying. So yes, nutrition is more than just what we eat and drink. And even that impacts us emotionally, the balance, the chemical balance of our gut and our brain and all of that maybe we're talking about in other spots here today.
Well, Virgil, you brought up a point about being strong, and the perception of what strong and weak is. And I know you talked about that as well. But the bottom line is, I'll tell you what. I was at a benefit for for Crohn's and colitis. My dad has colitis, and I went up there to go to do a toast. My dad never shows up at events that I'm emceeing, and he happened to be there. And I was doing the toast to say, hey, we're here to help fight Crohn's and colitis. And I started telling the story of how my dad almost lost his life, and I'm so lucky that he's here. And in the process, I got choked up. And I got to tell you, the first red flag that went up in my head is, nope, you're not allowed to get choked up. You're a dude. You don't cry. What are these people going to think of you? And it literally is a part of our society that we face every single day.
Every single day. I mean, it's almost like we've been brainwashed. It's for us men, as kids. Now, the women have been brought up to say, if you cry as a little girl or something, the first thing your parents do is, come here, honey. Let me give you a hug. Go ahead, cry, let it out. We men didn't get that opportunity to let it out. We were told to just fix it. And so in our minds, we got that stuff going on. We got to clear it out. But it's so important. And one of the things that we do at Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority is we push peer support services. And what that is consumers who have been through the journey and have recovered from all sorts of mental illness and to trying to reach. I like Eric's quote about mental fitness. I'm going to use that. I like that. So we try to get peers to push the word. It's all about sharing what's going on in mental health. So when I see someone that has come out of the tunnel and into the light, I use those guys to push the word. And so that's what we try to do in mental health.
I wrote a book called Real Men Do Cry. You can get it at Amazon. But anyway.
Okay,
Good plug. Good plug.
I need a copy.
So I am a believer of emotions. Okay, so and when Julie and Rube were talking earlier about their experience down in New Orleans and the devastations that goes on, there's also smaller things that happen, and they're just transitions. And it creates a certain stress, and we have to understand that there are things that are going to affect us. And it's not that we should avoid them and run away from them. Right. It's that take them head on, because that's how we do fix things. And there's 5 things that really, really affect our stress level: predictability, controllability, trust, relationships, and purpose. Those 5 things, if we've got them in our life, we can reduce stress quite a bit, and we can handle things because we can think in the moment, not worried about the future, about the past. The trouble is when something happens like a disaster, or something happens when somebody gets fired from a job, or something happens when they go through a relationship change, or something happens when kids go through with divorced parents. That transition right there changes all 5 of those things. Predictability, they feel loss of control, they don't feel safe anymore, the relationships change, what purpose do I have? Those things, the faster we can put those things back in place, then the faster we can reduce that anxiety again. But we have to understand that, otherwise we avoid and we run away from it.
I'd like to add to that, because thank you, because this is the second time you mentioned transitions are also a big part of our daily life over the years, even day to day. And what I want to say is there's one way that everybody on this earth can help the cause of reducing the stigma of mental health. And that's by, on a day-to-day basis, being able to acknowledge our emotions, no matter what they are. One thing I say to people all the time is, I hear a lot of people say things like, my problem's not big enough for therapy. Wrong. I don't care if somebody else has a problem bigger than yours. Your problem counts. I don't care how small somebody else tries to make you believe it is. Your problem counts. We don't have to wait until the world is falling apart to go to therapy. We can go just because the same reason we'd go get a massage, to have a mental massage, if you will. So transitions are a huge part. I'm not up here talking only about people that have had a mental health diagnosis or even a physical diagnosis. That certainly counts. But I'm talking even for those people who've never had a diagnosis but just have some daily stress. You don't have to wait for your problem to be warranted to deserve therapy. Every problem, every stress can benefit from that. So I just wanted to add that, and thanks
guys,
for pointing that out.
We're going to do, because all of you guys are really good at timing. You have 1-hour sessions. You played by the quarter. You guys know how much you get paid per the minute. Me too, on television. I know how much. So let's do one last thing. We're going to give you guys a chance to say hello to everybody one-on-one right here on the side. But we only have about another minute and a half on stage. So I'm going to give everyone About 30 seconds, and you guys know what that feels like because you're all time oriented. So 30 seconds as a final thought to open up the conversation of mental health. Please, we'll just leave it with you right now because you have the microphone.
Thank you. I would like to close with saying you have to continue to look at your mental health as just your health, period. If your mind is not well, your body won't be well. And it's the same relationship with your body. When your body is sick, it has an effect on your mind, and it can make you anxious, and it can make you feel that you're not well. So remember, take care of the entire body, and therapy is good for everyone.
Go ahead, Virgil.
Thank you. I would just like to close by saying, please let me know what we can do for you. That's how we learn. We need to hear from you. What do we need to do better in order to improve your overall mental health? So please, let me know. I got business cards. I want to hear, okay? Thank you.
Julie?
I will echo a little bit of what they said. The mind and the body is one singular organism, and it knows how to heal itself if we give it the space to do so. And so it's our job to learn how to give it the space.
Very good. Eric?
I'll say this, the highest suicide rates are in places where there's isolation, whether it's because of demographics or it's because of cultural things. We were built to be in relationships. We were built to be connected. We have these things called mirror neurons. We connect when we look at somebody. It's called empathy. I would say this, make eye contact with people when you talk to them because you feel it. Talk to the people that are closest to you, not just the people you meet brand new or people that are around you. Your family every day. Look at them eye to eye for the first time you see them that morning. Make eye contact because that's when we pick up something and that's when we can reach out and help somebody if they need it, but also it keeps us connected as well.
I'll just say one last thing. You know, in 30 seconds, every day I show up on the news, I go to scenes. I don't think going to see a therapist or get help is by any means a show of weakness. In fact, I find it as a great source of strength, and I have no problem saying that I take care of my mental fitness like I do my physical fitness, and I hope that this has helped maybe open that door for you to have that conversation with yourself and with those around you. Dr. Lutz, I'll let you have the last word here.
I just want to say thank you to our panel because this is a discussion that in 6 years we've never had, and it's long overdue. You know, we can look at what's going on in the world around us, and mental health is in the forefront, and it's just never been adequately addressed. And even when it's addressed, it's still fluffed. We just fluff it. We just pretend it's just another thing, and maybe it'll go away. It's almost like putting your head in a bucket of sand, but it's not going away, and it's getting worse. And so I just want to thank all of you for sharing your story, sharing this moment, and doing the things that you do in the community, whether it be through books or telling the story, personal sharing or counseling or offering people success from the failures that they feel that they're suffering from and really making a moment special. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're actually going to be going on to our last and final segment for the halftime. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the MIU Men's Health Foundation, since it's my moment, so I can. So really an event like this can only be successful if it wasn't for the volunteers that we have here. And if you look around, all the people wearing those orange shirts are our volunteers. And they do this because they want to do this. They choose to do this. This is important to them because they want to do it for you. And believe it or not, they feel like you're doing it for them. You're helping them make a day special. So I just hope that you have a chance to say hello or say a thank you to each of the volunteers that are here. There are 150 volunteers at this event today, and all of them decided that this Saturday was more important to be here than to be home. You know, we also have sponsors. This event couldn't be free if it wasn't for our sponsors. And you know, right behind you, we have our Metro Detroit Chevy dealers. And I just want you to take a moment to just say thank you to the Metro Detroit Chevy dealers and what they've done here, and to take ownership in men's health, because if it wasn't for them taking an ownership in men's health, they would just be selling cars. And we know that just selling cars isn't what it's all about. It's actually taking a stake in your community